Hello, in today's video we're going to talk about picking your legion for the Horus Heresy. So obviously the starting place is we are assuming that you are going down the route of a Space Marine Legion and one of the 18. Now the first two things you need to pick up from Forge World are this red book here, the Legion Astartes Age of Darkness Army List book, which has all the sort of bog standard unit like tactical marines and all the patterns of dreadnoughts and stuff like that. And the other thing you're going to need is this, the Legion Astartes Age of Darkness Legions book, with a nice little Eye of Horus right there. And in here you have Legion-specific stuff. So this is all your Legion-specific characters, units, and Primarchs and such. And you'll need both of these if you really want to delve into the Legions. And they're a really good way of finding which one you want to do. So the best place to start when you go to find out what Legion you want to collect is this book right here, because it has rules for all the legions in it. And when I say all the legions, I mean most, because the Thousand Sons and the Space Wolves have had their own book release lately, and they are yet to be updated in this red book. However, in here you get rules for the Emperor's Children, the Iron Warriors, Imperial Fist Night Lords, Iron Hands, World Eaters, Ultramarines, Death Guard, Sons of Horus, Word Bearers, Salamanders, Alpha Legion, and Raven Guard. And they're done. That's unusual actually, because I think the Alpha Legion are after the Raven Guard in the back of the book. It's a bit of a typo there, but they're done in Legion order, except not written on the back. So a really good place to start, because what it does is not only does it give you the rules for all the stuff, so you can see here in these nice 2-page spreads you've got his Fulgrim, the pretty boy himself, but before you get into the rules it gives you a tiny little bit of fluff. So here's an example. I'll read from the Emperor's Children. The Emperor's children have always striven to be exemplars above all others in the arts of war, paragons of martial virtue and excellence, scorning those who do not meet their own perhaps unattainable standards. This led them to seek perfection in war as fluid, lightning-quick force, whose battles were preordained victories, brought out by a combination of acute strategic planning and flawless execution. Their attitudes and manner led some to make them arrogant and vainglorious, long before the heresy, but the Legion's warriors are always ready to answer with such sleight of blood. So you get a little feel for what each Legion is like in there, in a nice little like paragraph summary of what to expect. And I think that's a really nice place to start. So if you want to buy into Horus Heresy, and let's say you picked up Calthor Prospero, and you don't really know where you want to go, then pick up this book and the other one from Forge World. I think they're both £32. Which really isn't that bad. It's got a nice gilded edge. Oh, look at that shine. Ooh. And it's a really, really well-made book. So you are definitely getting your money's worth with it. And they don't release them too often. I think we're probably going to be due one next year to whack the Thousand Sons and Space Wolves in it. And then there's just Blood Angels, Dark Angels, and White Scars to go, I believe. So you'll probably see them in there in the one after that. Because I think book 8, which is the next Black book, won't be released for another year or two. That's what the rumour's saying anyway. But that's by the by. So you want to pick up this book, basically, to find out what Legion you want to collect. And you need the other one for some of the core rules and like the basic units. And then once you've read the book, you just, whichever one feels like it suits you best. What you have to remember with Heresy is not a game of dick lists and win at all costs. It's a game of narrative. It's a game of fulfilling this story that you fell in love with when you read one of the books or looked at some of the cool models. So when you go to write a list, when you go to pick a Legion and write a list for that Legion, just bear that in mind. You know, it's not about it's not about spamming cheese like it is or was in 7th Ed 40k. Even most Horus Heresy events tend to be slightly more narrative than tournament based, or that's what I've seen anyway. Now don't get me wrong, there are tournaments, but the real fluff orientated narrative events seem to do pretty well from what I've seen. And I'm very excited to be going on myself, but I'll talk more about that in a future video because it gives me the opportunity to talk about it, and I'll maybe even next week's video pop that in there. So once you've basically decided what Legion you're going to do, it's about picking units inside the Legion and how you're going to paint them and stuff. And I'm going to do a video of that in the future because I'm working on my Iron Hands at the moment. And what I'll do is I'll take this opportunity just to pop a picture in front of my face, and I'm sure you'll all be very grateful. And it'll be of my 5-man plasma support squad that I finished the other day. I'm really pleased with how that plasma came out, and I am looking forward to painting more. I mean, I've just finished some Tartarus Terminators as well, and on the table at the moment I'm building up my first tactical squad. So very exciting times for my iron hands, and you'll see them develop as I talk through these things, how to paint them and stuff. Not necessarily teaching you how to paint them, but there are a variety of schemes out there for each legion. But back to the picking of the legions. I think what you have to try and do is find the one that will suit you the most. Now, obviously, don't forget, you're never really going to be restricted to one legion. I started with the Word Bearers. I read the first Heretic, and I absolutely fell in love with the character Argyle Tal, who is supposed to be having a character model come out at some point soon, which should be exciting. And I think that just really drove my purchase of Calth, and therefore the creation of the Word Bearers Legion I have. But I always knew that that wasn't going to be the only legion I'd collect, so I wasn't too fussed. I didn't think about what legion I wanted to do too hard, because I know what I'm like with collecting armies, and the Horus Heresy has got me in this position where I am so stupidly hard for heresy. I could collect every legion under the sun, except the Emperor's Children. I actually don't like them. I think the Fulgrim is a dick. Not just because he, spoiler alert, killed Ferrus Manus, but also because he's such a pretty boy, and I'm not down for that in war. So anyway, yeah, you don't have to restrict yourself to one legion, obviously. Those who are perhaps money conscious may well do so, or have different themes like infantry legions. I know that Harry is starting his second, like 31k army, which will be a Raptors force, based around the book Deliverance Lost, and he is doing a very infantry heavy theme because his Black Templars are more walkers and dreadnought based. So there's scope for lots of different army builds, lots of different paint jobs, lots of different nuances in fluff and how you choose to build the army. So when you go to build your legion, it is your legion. You could face off against another one playing, let's say I play my Word Bearers, I could go up against another Word Bearer list and play a totally different army, and I have done. In fact, at a tournament I went to over this summer, I first game drew Word Bearers. Really cool chap called Kerry, and he had some beautiful stuff, but we both ran very different lists. He had a lot more, I suppose, he had a Death Star in a drop pod, he had some support units, whereas I decided to go 20-man tactical squad, buffed up with stuff, Lorgar sat inside it, 2 roaming units of Galvor back with my other characters, and then a big blob of Terminators and a 5-man squad of veterans because I had to. So we both took very different lists, and we both played very different styles of game. But at the end of the day, it was still Word Bearers versus Word Bearers. So you never have to worry about going up against an identical army, because there are so many nuances and ways to build these armies and ways to paint them that you'll never come across the same legion. Not an identical one, that is. So don't let that sway you either. You know, if you've got 5 people in your gaming group and that you want to do a legion that someone else is doing, you just take a different spin on it, that's all. So I hope that's opened your eyes a little bit to the different sort of legions that are available. Obviously I listed them off earlier, and I'm sure we'll take an in-depth look at some of them at some point. But this is more just to say that if you get these books, it opens up this massive avenue for creation, your own opportunity to make the things you want to make in the way you want to make them in the Horus Heresy. And I strongly vouch that you go out and buy one of the starter sets and start off just by looking at a Zone Mortalis force, which can be 1 HQ and 1 troops, and then a couple of optional extras. And if you start with that, you never know where you'll end up. I started with the Word Bearers thinking, oh, I'll just do a 2,000 point list and I'll stop there, and now I've got more than 3,000 points of them, and I'm looking at the Iron Hands thinking what I want to do, and I've already decided, screw it, it's probably going to be about 5k at the end of this, possibly more if I get carried away, but I'm enjoying painting them, so, you know, Heresy is the game for the lovers of the hobby. And on that note, I think it's a good time to end. So if you want to keep up with us, check us out on Instagram at Tabletop Banter, all one word, no caps. And you'll see all the stuff I'm working on Iron Hands wise. So you'll already see, you know, I've got the plasma pictures up there. They did really well, actually. People seem to like the plasma. And I've got the Tartarus Terminators up. I'll be posting Castrum and Orth, the special tank character dude, but his foot version, up soon, and you'll probably see plenty of updates. I try and do a post a day, keep people interested in something, and keep myself on there, and there's so much cool stuff on there. So I would recommend signing up to Instagram just for the hobby. That's all I do. I've got no interest in other people's dinners and taking pictures of walks with their dogs, but there are so many good pictures and miniatures up there. It's really quite an inspirational place for painting. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave those comments below. Let me know what you think of the Plasma Support Squad, and you know, what would you do if you are not in the Heresy right now? A, tell me why, because you're missing out on possibly the best game ever in terms of fun. And B, what Legion would you choose if you were to get into it? And hopefully, by the end of this series, whenever it ends, I'll have managed to coerce you into forking out your precious hobby money on some Horus Heresy goodies. So that's it this time, and thanks for watching. See you next time.